Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Arundhati Ramnan, and with me as always is Shruti Mishra. These are the top headlines from the startup world. SaaS-focused venture capital firm Cornerstone Ventures completes the first close of its targeted $200 million second fund at approximately $40 million.
3D automotive visualization startup Eccentric Engine has raised $5 million in a pre-Series A round led by Xfinity Venture and Arkham Ventures. The firm plans to use the funds towards product development and international expansion.
Space tech startup Orbit Aid raises $1.5 million in pre-seed round led by Unicorn India Ventures with participation from Tanzim, Government of Tamil Nadu. Orbit Aid is developing a cutting-edge fuel station in space designed to extend the lifespan of satellites by enabling efficient refueling and maintenance.
Sustainability-focused SaaS platform GreenStitch has raised $1.2 million in a seed funding round led by Equirus Innovatics Fund with participation from IvyCap Ventures, Warm Up Ventures and Sika Ventures.
The Union Secretary for Electronics and IT says critical equipment meant for Indian manufacturers and global companies like Foxconn is being held up at Chinese ports for several months. Electronics industry fears any further disruption could jeopardize production and expansion plans.
Those were the headlines from the startup space. Tomorrow will be National Startup Day. India's startup ecosystem has rapidly evolved over the past few decades, fueled by IT giants like Infosys, Wipro, which paved the way for a new wave of innovation and entrepreneurship. This environment inspired some young and brilliant minds to recognize the growing need for new services and products that meet global demands. This dynamic shift has led to the rise of what we now call the startup culture in India. Arundhati Ramanan is here with the startups that have changed India's startup ecosystem. Arundhati.
It's National Startup Day on January 16th, and it's time to take stock of all the firsts that kick-started India's startup journey. Founded in Bangalore in 2007, InMobi is a mobile-first platform that allows brands, developers, and publishers to engage consumers through contextual mobile advertising. Why is it important? InMobi became India's first unicorn way back in 2011. Over a decade later, unicorns are no longer rare. In May 2022, neobanking startup Open raised $50 million to become India's 100th unicorn. In 2025, and in India now, it is home to 118 unicorns. From unicorns to decacorns, Flipkart galloped into the decacorn stratosphere in 2014, and 3 more Indian startups have managed to achieve this feat: Swiggy, Nykaa, and PhonePe. Way back in 2006, InfoEdge, the parent company of Naukri.com, Shiksha.com, and Jeevansathi.com, took to Dalal Street. The firm became one of the few profitable pure-play internet companies in the country. In 2021, we saw Falguni Nayar become India's first self-made female billionaire after the initial public offering of her e-commerce company, Nykaa. Swiggy's initial public offering of 11,327 crore rupees was the 6th largest in India's history. It was also the biggest tech IPO globally in 2024. And in the same year, we saw as many as 13 startups go public, from the likes of MobiKwik to Ola Electric, and 2025 promises to be even more electrifying. From domestic to global shores, Make My Trip became India's first startup to list on the Nasdaq way back in 2010. Meanwhile, Freshworks became the first Indian origin software startup to list on the Nasdaq Stock Exchange following a $1 billion initial public offering. The company raised over $1.03 billion in its IPO with a mission to extend India's SaaS industry to the world. India's SaaS opportunity is projected to be a $70 billion one by 2030. The other key milestone in India's startup ecosystem was the advent of the quick commerce boom. That is being hailed as India's Internet Moment 2.0. The now defunct Dunzo that shut shop started this trend way back in 2014, and Blinkit, Instamart, and Zepto have taken it to new heights.
Well, continuing with our focus on India's startup ecosystem, the space has seen rapid advancement in the last decade. The ecosystem has generated 16 lakh jobs and attracted over $147 billion in 8 years. Aishwarya Anand is here with a wrap on India's startup ecosystem on the eve of National Startup Day. Take a look.
It's National Startup Day on January 16th, and let me take you through how the space has fared in the last decade or so. India's startup economy has been booming with new businesses mushrooming rapidly across the country. India boasts of over 157,000 startups registered with the Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, or DPIIT. Indian startups have received over $147 billion in funding between 2016 and 2014, which has resulted in creation of over 16 lakh jobs as per DPIIT. After nearly 2 years of funding winter, the startup ecosystem in India regained the heat in 2024. Startups raised over $11 billion in 2024, up from $9.4 billion in 2023, according to data from Venture Intelligence. Fintech, e-commerce and enterprise tech have continued to attract most capital in the last 5 years. In 2024, these sectors accounted for more than 2/3 of the total funding. And this is likely to get better as VC funds are currently sitting on $9 billion worth of dry powder. When Startup India launched 9 years ago, India had 10 unicorns. Today, the country has 118 unicorns or companies that are valued at over $1 billion. Just 5 years ago, India didn't have a single venture-funded startup that was publicly listed with over $10 billion market cap. Today, we have 5 companies over that number, including Zomato at $30 billion market cap, InfoEdge, MakeMyTrip, Swiggy, and Policy Bazaar are all over $10 billion public market cap. Just in 2024, a record-breaking 13 startups went public. Looking ahead, 2025 is set to continue this momentum with an even bigger IPO pipeline. At least 25 startups, including Zetwork, Meesho, Bluestone, Urban Company, Zepto, Grow, and Pine Labs, are preparing to hit the public markets. 2025 also brings opportunities, especially in artificial intelligence. AI is at the cusp of democratization, empowering startups to disrupt traditional sectors like healthcare, education, and fintech.
Thank you, Aishwarya, for those details. Moving on, India's startup ecosystem has undergone a remarkable transformation, evolving from a quiet backwater in the late 2000s to a global powerhouse that raised about $150 billion between 2014 and 2024. Just 2 weeks into the new year, startups have already raised $330 million, with the first unicorn sighting imminent.
And despite global economic challenges, India's startups showcase remarkable resilience. According to data from Venture Intelligence, Indian startups raised a total of $11.2 billion in funding throughout 2024, as compared to $9.4 billion secured in 2023. Giving a boost to the ecosystem in July last year, the government announced the abolishment of the angel tax on investments in startups, providing a more conducive environment for growth.
As we celebrate India's National Startup Day tomorrow, we bring you a special discussion with 2 eminent VCs. Joining us now are Deepak Padaki, President at Catamaran Ventures, and Anurag Ramdasan, Partner at 314 Capital. Deepak and Anurag, welcome to Startup Street. Let me start with you, Deepak. The startup ecosystem is clearly maturing and focusing on sustainable growth. A striking trend in 2024 was IPOs outperforming unicorns, as 13 startups went public as opposed to just 6 new entrants to the $1 billion club. What excites you about 2025?
Thanks for having me on, Shruti, and great to be here, and happy Startup Day in advance. I think on the, where our principle for our venture fund comes from, and there's a deep ethos of entrepreneurship. Infosys was the original OG, I would say, of entrepreneurship in the country, and so that ethos flows through for us. We do believe that entrepreneurship is the big means by which we can create jobs, and I think some of the data that you published here today is testament to that. So what excites us today, I think, is that we're seeing an evolution in the kinds of startups that are coming in. When entrepreneurs come to meet us today, we are seeing more of IP-driven, original, deep tech ideas compared to the last decade, which was either business models that were adapted for India or a lot of Me Too kind of startups that had come in. So clearly, IP-driven, original ideas is what is exciting us in the startup world today.
Okay.
And in some sense, Shruti, I think it's a tale of 2 stages. What's happening in the early stage startups in the country versus what's happening with some of the growth and pre-IPO stage. And the growth side is where you're seeing a lot of these cohorts of the consumer and fintech that's coming up, and many of the IPOs that went public recently.
All right.
Versus early stage is more deep tech, I think, today.
Absolutely. While Deepak, you mentioned the tale of two stages, Anurag, coming to you, while late-stage startups continue to garner the bigger checks last year, mopping up $5.1 billion, early-stage startups came second with $3.4 billion. Do you see this trend continue? How are you viewing 2025 at 314 Capital?
No, definitely. I think it was a great year for early stage startups. And just, adding to what Deepak also mentioned, I think we've gone through enough phases in the early stage startup ecosystem now, where, even some of the larger companies that you mentioned earlier, if you look at Zepto, if you look at Rebel, if you look at PhysicsWallah, they're all interesting models where their global counterparts may not have worked out as well as the Indian counterparts have, right? So the Indian counterparts have been able to innovate in ways that have made them more sustainable, more exciting, and more fast growing. And we are seeing that sort of DNA shift happen very much in the early stage. We are seeing fewer Me Too companies. We are seeing more, IP-led differentiation. We are seeing more deep tech endeavors. And, on top of that, because this is now an ecosystem that's been around for close to 2 decades, we are seeing an incredible jump in the quality of the founders that we see, in the quality of thought process, diligence, etc., on how they are building out companies. And look, the data stands for itself, right? Like you mentioned, over $3 billion of capital went into early stage. I mean, if you look at early stage where the average check size may be 1 to 2 million, 3 billion is a vast number, right? This is also fueled by the kind of late stage promise that we've been seeing. I mean, 13 startups going IPO in 2024. That's one tech IPO a month. And it's projected to become 2 tech IPOs a month in this coming year. That gives a lot of confidence to early stage founders, early stage investors on the promise of this ecosystem. And if you look at, obviously 2021 and 2022 were slightly anomalistic years. But
Right.
if you take that out of the equation, throughout the history of the ecosystem, the amount of capital that has gone into startups has only grown. Even 2024, I think early stage contribution of funding was about 20-25% more than 2023.
Absolutely.
So I think we're poised to see a very good 2025. I think the trends are very positive and we're super excited.
Right. So trends are very positive and poised to see an extremely good 2025. Deepak, if I could bring you back into the conversation, Catamaran Ventures has over 45 portfolio companies, right? So what kind of conversations are you having with them for this year? What are going to be the big trends to watch out for in 2025?
Yeah, I think there's a shift. If I look at trends broadly, and this is the new set of companies that we have been looking at to invest in, I would pick two. One is, of course, the whole AI space, especially on the application layer. I think application and tooling in AI is something that's becoming hot. In some sense, I think the playing field has been leveled. Today, you can innovate on AI applications in India as well as you can do it in the Bay Area, for instance. Because the foundation models are the same. So we're seeing a lot of interesting ideas, whether it's in health tech, diagnosis, and of course, SaaS and automation of services. So that's one area. The second area that we're looking at really is around manufacturing. We have a deep thesis in Catamaran over manufacturing, really looking at how we can grow the supply chain within the country using our patient family office kind of capital. And especially in areas of precision manufacturing, electronics, aerospace manufacturing, these kind of items where, we need to build up this supply chain within the country. So these are two areas that we are focused on. And the conversation we're having with our existing portfolio companies, of course, is on improving profitability, on getting to a profitable path so that we can ride some of the exit waves and IPO numbers that you had shared earlier.
Right, absolutely. And Anurag, if you could quickly tell us, the overall funding trend reflects a cautious yet optimistic approach from investors as they navigate a more selective funding environment, right? So what is your investment thesis going to be this year? And what are your top bets?
Yeah, so a great question, Arundhati. Look, we come in early stage, right? So that's a slightly different journey because while late stage investors may want to look at profitability, want to look at IPO potential, etc., you cannot have a similar lens in the early stage. In early stage, what we want to see is newer, exciting ideas, strong differentiation from what existed before, and a very, very clear right to win. And like I mentioned earlier, that is where we are the most excited. We are seeing true homegrown innovation play out. We are seeing companies across biotech, specialty chemicals, precision electronics, agriculture, etc., tackling problems in a new way, in an IP-led way, in a way that we've not seen being done before. Obviously, due to the overall funding crunch, they are also trying to do this in a much more capital efficient manner.
Okay.
Uh, and we think that will lead to a new class of startups which are uh, high growth but also relatively frugal.
All right, Anurag, before we get to and ask both of you your budget expectations, there's one question that I want to ask the both of you. There's a noticeable rise in women entrepreneurs, signaling a positive shift in inclusivity and diversity within the startup ecosystem. To the both of you, is there a conscious effort to invest in women founders? Deepak, if you could go first.
No, we do meet a lot of women founders. And also, I think the other trend, Shruti, is that there are a lot of funds that are being, anchored by women investors. And so naturally, there's a fit there that they're trying to, invest more into the women's side of things. Look, our approach is that, we do believe in diversity. We think, diverse funds and diverse companies will bring in a lot more innovative ideas. But our primary goal is, of course, to look at investments that will generate good returns. And so it's a kind of combination of the two is what I would say, Shruti.
All right. Anurag, your quick comment on this.
So, Shruti, there was a report recently which said, in 2024, women-led startups getting funded went up by 93%, which I think is phenomenal. Deepak mentioned that there are obviously funds that are, focused on women founders, but I also think this is a sign of maturity in the ecosystem. Today, if you look at the startup ecosystem, you will find several women at leadership -1 position, which puts them in a great place to move out and start their own startups, right? So we're seeing that development of very good talent across industries in women in startups, and that's leading to just a higher contribution of women-led startups, which is very encouraging, and we think that will continue, and that will lead to more women founders getting funded throughout this year.
Absolutely. And Deepak, the union budget is just right around the corner, right? So what's your big ask from budget this year?
Yeah, I would think, the angel tax thing was a big thing in the past that benefited the industry. But I would really look for in the budget more things around what can drive consumption. I think we are seeing some kind of pause in consumption story today. We want to see whether that can be improved. The second is, of course, since we are focused on manufacturing, we'd look for continuation of some of the incentives for our portfolio companies and prospective portfolio companies around the whole manufacturing incentives, so that we can push that part of the industry forward as well.
All right. Anurag, coming to you, while the government has abolished angel tax, do you hope to see changes around ESOP regulations as well, addressing the outdated rule prohibiting promoters and founders from holding ESOPs? And apart from that, what is your big ask?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think, ESOP needs to be a bit more streamlined and a bit more incentivized. Eventually, that's what leads to higher quality innovation. So we would want that to happen. Deepak mentioned consumption. I think that is another big trend that we would want to see play out. And lastly, I think it's also been an interesting evolution of Indian startups where they've started to go global much more aggressively. They're starting to enable other manufacturers to go global. So, better ease of doing business for manufacturers and exporters will be another thing that we would love to see.
All right. On that note, we'll have to wrap up our conversation. But thank you so much, Deepak and Anurag, for giving us time and joining us on Startup Street today.
Thank you, Shruti.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So 2025 also looking to be a positive year for the startup ecosystem. But on that note, it is time for us to slip into a short break. But coming up, Indian skincare brand Foxtale has backed $30 million in a Series C round. We bring you a special conversation with the company's founder on the other side. Stay tuned.
Hyundai Creta Electric. Over 1 million have driven the dreams, and millions can't wait to. Hyundai Creta Electric. Electric is now Creta.
We have Kirloskar brothers at our earlier plants. What would your preference be this time?
Only Kirloskar brothers.
पापा सिर्फ किर्लोस्कर ब्रदर्स ही क्यों?
यही सवाल मैंने भी तुम्हारे दादाजी से पूछा।
बाबूजी किर्लोस्कर ही क्यों?
क्योंकि किर्लोस्कर ब्रदर्स है। सदियों से भारत का भरोसा किर्लोस्कर ब्रदर्स लिमिटेड।
Explore groundbreaking insights from industry leaders and policymakers on building safer, sustainable infrastructure with cutting-edge electrical innovation. Catch the highlights of Polycab and CNBC TV18 present Infra Safety Powering India's Electrical Future, Mumbai Conclave, at this time only on CNBC TV18.
It's been over 2 decades of tracking the global power shifts at the World Economic Forum. Starting from our first story reported 20 years ago to last year's groundbreaking coverage of the world's most important economic event. From discovering
Engineered, co-presented by Bank of Baroda, trusted today, transforming tomorrow. State partner, Government of Telangana.
Welcome back to Startup Street. D2C skincare brand Foxtale has raised $30 million in a Series C funding round, which saw participation from Japanese multinational cosmetics and personal care company Kose Corporation. This funding gives Kose a 10% stake in Foxtale. In addition to the fundraise, both companies have also entered into a strategic partnership to expand Kose's presence in India. My colleague Shilpa Ranipeta spoke to the founder, Romita Mazumdar, to discuss what the funding means for Foxtale and their plans with Kose for the Indian market.
We are very excited to have them as a partner and contribute significantly, not just in capital, but also in the legacy and the knowledge that they have and globally for the last 80 years of building in BPC in particular. They are not just a Japanese multinational, they're the second largest beauty company in Japan. They are amongst the top 10 globally in terms of both size and the years that they have been around. And they also have access to one of the most leading state-of-the-art facilities when it comes to R&D. So we are excited to be able to elevate R&D for India and bring a lot more advanced technologies to India and solve for the Indian skin type. And of course, with the additional capital, it gives us a lot of, like the war chest box to be able to build further, to grow further, and penetrate deeper in India.
Right. So how is the partnership also going to be? There's a strategic partnership also that will be there with Kose. Just run us through that.
So the strategic partnership is actually very separate from the Series C fundraising. The Series C happened first and it was independent of the discussion. But as we spend more time together during the Series C fundraise, we realize, that we can do more with this partnership and with this cultures coming together. And that's when we partnered together to build Kose's presence in India. So Foxtale and the team together will work with Kose's team to build their market share. And I think it's extremely exciting because those who know the brands that they have some of the best brands in skincare and makeup globally.
Just overall wanted to understand what's the growth been like for the company since we've last spoken. As we speak currently, what's the kind of run rate that we're looking at, and any targets that you have set for the maybe for FY25 or for the next 2-3 years?
So even we're just a 3-year-old company, so this is our 3rd fiscal year. We've grown 2.5x between fiscal year 24 and 25. at a gross revenue level, we would close fiscal year 25 closer to 300 to 330 crores in revenue. That's at gross revenue. So and I always like to say this, we've done on the back of 18 SKUs. So it's not that we have multiple SKUs. We've grown with the same SKUs that we brought the brand to the consumers in India. So in 3 years, we have become a 300 crore brand, and it's been extremely humbling as experience. We've also profitable post all our marketing expenses, and fiscal year 26, we do expect to work towards EBITDA profitability and get to that in a very smooth and safe landing manner. In terms of goals, I always said this, and I say it quite publicly because we feel very confident. We are here to build a 1,000 crore company, and the goal is to build that in the next 3 to 4 years, and we are looking forward to doing that.
Right, wonderful. And you know, most recently your foray, or rather expansion, was going into the body care segment. How's the response been? I think 6 months since the launch. I think around June, July is when you forayed, right? So it's roughly about 6 months. Run me through how it's done. And you launched with mainly 2 shower gels that you did. So as we speak currently, are you looking at further expanding this range? And how's the response been?
It's been outstanding. I think we were amazed at the kind of response that we got. Today, if I look at gross level, we are roughly a 40 crore ARR business when it comes to body care within 5 months. We actually launched late July, and within 5 months we've hit. But most importantly, it's profitable. So it's a subcategory that became profitable from its 4th month of operation. And that means that none of the capital raises, none of the extra equity or capital raise from the company is going into the business. The business is self-fulfilling and growing from a 0 to 40 crore in 5 months of existence.
So are you expanding the body care range further? And also, are you any new segments that you're eyeing? Because now that you also have, Cose on board, which is also a very big player in makeup, and more segments of skincare also might open up for you. So is makeup something that should look at? Is more things within body care like shampoos, conditioners, any other segments? Like, are you looking at expanding that?
Answer is yes. We are looking to expand into more categories, and I think we are very well prepared because Foxtale today is very comfortably at 300 crore with a clear path to profitability, and I think the team is very well set. I have an outstanding team that is going to take it from 300 to 1,000. So I think playbook's been set. So we do see ourselves doing another category very soon. What category? I think it will be there. Hopefully, you will see it as a user very soon out there in the market. Yeah.
And with that, it is a wrap on this edition of Startup Street. From Shruti and me, goodbye and many thanks for watching. More news and updates coming up on the other side. Stay tuned.
You dreamt of European engineering, of modern design, of craft that's comfortable. With the best-in-class maintenance cost, we made your dream